They were just children. 3 little boys huddled together on a freezing night, their stomachs empty for the 2nd day in a row. But when a billionaire in a tailored suit stopped near them, they didn't beg for money. They didn't ask for food. Instead, with trembling hands, they broke their only piece of bread into 3 parts and offered him one. In that moment, the man who thought he had everything discovered what it meant to have nothing. And for the first time in years, tears rolled down his face in front of strangers. The city was alive with neon lights and hurried footsteps. But on the forgotten side of the street, time moved differently. There, beneath the dim glow of a flickering lamppost, 3 little boys sat huddled together on the cracked pavement. They were no older than 7, their faces nearly identical, the unmistakable look of triplets. Their thin jackets did little. Against the biting cold of the evening, passers-by walked quickly, adjusting their coats, tightening their scarves, avoiding the sight of the children as if ignoring them would make them disappear. But the boys didn't complain. They didn't shout. They didn't beg. Instead, on a small piece of brown paper, they placed what little treasure they had left, a single piece of stale bread. The eldest, though only minutes older than his brothers, tore the bread carefully into 3 equal parts. His small hands trembled in the cold, but his concentration was absolute. He wanted it to be fair, even if the piece was too small to fill their empty stomachs. His brothers watched him silently, eyes wide, lips chapped from the wind. When he was finished, he handed each boy his share. They smiled faintly, as if this ritual, this act of dividing hunger, was as normal as breathing. One of them tucked his piece carefully into his pocket, saving it for later. Another took the smallest bite imaginable, chewing slowly, as though stretching time itself. The last boy held his bread, but did not eat at all. Instead, he looked at his brothers and whispered, "If you're full, then I'll be full too." None of them were full. None of them had been full in days. But in their innocent minds, hunger was something they could fight with smiles, with brotherhood, with love. Cars passed by in a blur of headlights, horns blaring, engines growling. To the rest of the city, it was just another night. But to the triplets, this night was heavier than most. Their mother had promised she would return with food, but hours had passed, and she had not come. They tried not to worry. They told themselves she was working late, or maybe she had found something good to bring back. But deep down, even at their young age, they knew the truth. Sometimes promises were made only to give hope, not because they could be kept. The youngest brother, the one who had not eaten at all, looked up at the stars, barely visible through the city haze. His voice was soft, fragile, almost lost in the noise of the street. "Do you think Mama is cold too?" he asked. The eldest pulled him closer, wrapping his little arm round him. "Mama is strong, stronger than us. She'll be okay." But his words trembled, betraying his own doubt. They leaned against each other, small bodies pressed tightly for warmth. Their eyes grew heavy, not from food, but from exhaustion. Yet they dared not sleep, not here, not on the open street. Too many dangers lurked in the shadows. Men who wandered drunk, cars that sped recklessly, the biting cold that could creep into their bones. While they dreamed, and so they waited, hungry, shivering, but together. Just then, the sound of polished shoes echoed against the pavement. Different from the hurried shuffle of ordinary footsteps, these steps were slow, deliberate, commanding. The triplets lifted their heads. A tall man in a tailored black coat approached, his figure outlined by the headlights of a sleek car waiting at the curb. His presence was striking, the kind that made people instinctively step aside without knowing why. His hair was neat, his tie perfectly aligned, his eyes sharp and unyielding. He was a man used to being obeyed, a man who carried the weight of wealth and power in every stride. He was the kind of man who never noticed children like them, and yet, on this night, he did. The triplets stared as the man paused, his gaze falling upon them. For a moment, the world around them seemed to freeze. The cold, the hunger, the noise of the city, everything faded, leaving only the strange connection between a billionaire and three starving boys clutching a piece of bread. The eldest, nervous but polite, lifted his hand. In it was the last fragment of their meal. He extended it forward, his voice trembling but sincere. "Mister, you can have some if you're hungry." The words hung in the air, fragile, unbelievable. This man owned skyscrapers. His name alone could open doors across the globe. He had dined in the most expensive restaurants, flown in private jets, signed deals worth more than the children could imagine in a lifetime, and yet three hungry triplets with nothing in their pockets but crumbs and hope were offering him their last piece of bread. For the first time in years, the billionaire felt something crack inside him. Something no business deal, no luxury, no amount of money had been able to touch. It was as if innocence itself had reached into his guarded heart and pulled out a tear. Asterisk high above the glittering skyline, inside the tallest tower in the city, a different world existed. Here, hunger was not measured by empty stomachs, but by ambition, by deals, by power. On the top floor, behind walls of glass and steel, the office of Alexander Knight, billionaire, CEO, and the man whose footsteps had startled the triplets, looked more like a throne room than a workplace. Floor-to-ceiling windows opened into the night, offering a sweeping view of the city lights below. His desk, carved from mahogany, gleamed under the soft glow of designer lamps. Not a paper out of place, not a chair askew. Everything reflected control, discipline, precision, but the man who owned it all sat alone. Alexander Knight was a man the world admired, envied, even feared. Newspapers called him ruthless. Magazines declared him a genius. Employees whispered about his temper, his impossible standards, his refusal to tolerate weakness. In every boardroom, he was a storm. In every negotiation, he was fire. But when the doors closed and the lights dimmed, he was quiet. He leaned back in his leather chair, scrolling through numbers on a glowing screen. $1 billion mergers, expansions into new countries, partnerships with governments and corporations. The kind of things most men would never even dream of touching. Yet tonight, none of it seemed to matter. He set the tablet down and rubbed his temples. The silence of the office was deafening. No laughter of children, no warmth of family, just the cold hum of air conditioning, the distant honk of cars, and the ticking of an expensive clock that seemed to mock his solitude. For years, Alexander had told himself that loneliness was the price of greatness, that success required sacrifice, that wealth demanded walls. And so he had built those walls higher and higher until even he could no longer see over them. His assistant had once joked that he lived in his office more than his penthouse. She wasn't wrong. His home, though vast and luxurious, was often empty, marble floors, chandeliers, private pools, all untouched, all unused. The refrigerator stocked with delicacies from around the world, often spoiled before anyone had a chance to taste them. The truth was simple. Alexander Knight had everything and nothing. A knock at the door broke the silence. His assistant peeked in, a cautious smile on her face. "Sir, your car is ready. The gala begins in 30 minutes. Alexander gave a curt nod, rising to his feet. His suit, tailored in Italy, fit him like armor. Every detail spoke of wealth: the polished cufflinks, the gleam of his watch, the subtle cologne that lingered in the air. Yet when he looked in the mirror by the door, his reflection seemed tired. Not physically, but somewhere deeper, in the part of a man that wealth cannot disguise. He left the office, descended into the waiting limousine, and allowed the night to carry him through the streets. Outside his tinted windows, he saw the city alive with lights, vendors calling, children laughing. For a fleeting moment, his gaze lingered on a boy selling flowers at a traffic light, holding them up desperately to passing cars. The boy couldn't have been older than 8. Alexander turned his eyes away. He told himself it wasn't his concern. He told himself that the world was full of such struggles and he could not carry them all. He reminded himself of the gala ahead, the donors, the investors, the cameras, and yet a strange heaviness clung to him. By the time the car reached its destination, he still couldn't shake the image of the boy's small hand pressing flowers against glass. It wasn't hunger or poverty that unsettled him. He had seen both, countless times before. It was the innocence in the boy's eyes, innocence he had long forgotten. He stepped out of the limousine into the golden lights of a grand hotel. Cameras flashed. Guests whispered. Alexander Knight, Billionaire CEO, had arrived. To them, he was untouchable, unshakable, the man who could buy empires. But deep inside, as he adjusted his cufflinks and forced a smile, he carried an emptiness he could not name. Little did he know, that emptiness was about to be filled in the most unexpected way, for at the end of this night, 3 hungry boys with a single piece of bread would change his world forever.